Today, we're going to explore one of the most profound and timeless books ever written. A book that wasn't meant to be published. A book that was never intended for anyone's eyes except the author's own. And yet, it has influenced millions of people across centuries, from military generals to business leaders, from artists to everyday people seeking wisdom in a chaotic world. I'm talking about Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Now, before we dive into the main lessons and conclusions of this remarkable work, let me set the stage for you, because understanding who wrote this book and when he wrote it makes all the difference in appreciating its power. Marcus Aurelius lived from 121 to 180 AD. He was the emperor of Rome during what historians call the height of the Roman Empire. Imagine being at the absolute peak of power in the ancient world. You command the most powerful military forces ever assembled. You have access to unlimited wealth. You can literally shape the course of human civilization with a single decision. But here's what makes Marcus different from almost every other powerful leader in history. He was a philosopher first and an emperor second. He studied Stoic philosophy from a young age, and he genuinely tried to live by its principles even when he held absolute power. And let me tell you, his reign was not easy. This wasn't some peaceful, golden era where he could sit back and enjoy the luxury of his position. No, Marcus faced constant warfare on the frontiers of the empire. He dealt with devastating plagues that killed millions of his citizens, including members of his own family. He lost multiple children. He was surrounded by political intrigue, betrayal, and the constant weight of impossible decisions. And it was during these darkest moments, during military campaigns in cold, muddy camps far from Rome, that Marcus wrote what we now call Meditations. He wrote in Greek, even though Latin was the official language of Rome, because Greek was the language of philosophy. He wrote late at night, by candlelight, in a journal that he never intended anyone else to read. These weren't polished essays meant for publication. They were personal reminders, notes to himself, raw, honest reflections on how to be a good person, how to maintain inner peace, and how to fulfill your duties with integrity when everything around him was falling apart. The book wasn't even called Meditations originally. That title came much later. Marcus simply called his writings To Himself. Think about that for a moment. The most powerful person in the world writing guidance to himself, as if he were his own student and teacher combined. So, what is the main point of Meditations? What's the central insight that runs through every page of this ancient text? Here it is, and I want you to really hear this, because it's going to change how you see your own challenges. The fundamental message of Meditations is that you cannot control external events, but you have complete control over your internal responses. Your mind, your judgments, your interpretations, these are your domain. These are your power. And no one, absolutely no one, can take that power away from you unless you surrender it willingly. Marcus wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the universe is change and life is opinion. What he meant is that circumstances are constantly shifting, constantly in flux, and nothing external is ultimately within your control. But your opinion, your judgment about those circumstances, that's entirely up to you. Let me give you a modern example to make this concrete. Imagine you're stuck in terrible traffic. You have an important meeting and you're going to be late. The traffic is external. It's completely outside your control. You can honk your horn, you can curse, you can feel your blood pressure rising, but none of that will change the traffic. The traffic simply is. But your response to the traffic, that's internal. That's yours. You can choose to see it as a disaster, a personal attack by the universe, a sign that your whole day is ruined. Or you can accept it as something beyond your control. Use the time to listen to a podcast or an audiobook, practice breathing exercises, or simply observe your own mind's tendency to catastrophize about things that don't actually matter in the grand scheme of your life. Marcus would tell you that the traffic isn't the problem. Your judgment about the traffic is the problem. And since you control your judgments, you actually control whether you suffer or not. This is the core of Stoic philosophy, and it's woven through every page of Meditations. The Stoics divided all things into two categories: things within our control and things outside our control. Within our control are our thoughts, our judgments, our intentions, our responses, our character, our effort. Outside of our control is basically everything else: other people's actions, the weather, the past, the future, our reputation, success, failure, even our own bodies to a large extent. Marcus spent his entire life trying to focus all his energy on what he could control and accept with equanimity everything he couldn't. And remember, this is a man who could have had almost anything he wanted. He could have lived in denial, surrounded himself with yes-men, blamed others for every problem, indulged in every pleasure, but he didn't. He chose the harder path, the path of self-mastery. Let me share some of the specific lessons from Meditations that really capture this philosophy in action. First, Marcus talks constantly about impermanence. Everything is temporary. Everything fades. He writes about how even the greatest emperors before him, people whose names were once spoken with awe and fear, are now forgotten. Their monuments have crumbled, their achievements have turned to dust. And one day, he himself would be forgotten too. And you know what? He was okay with that. Why? Because if nothing lasts, if everything is temporary, then why would you waste your precious time chasing fame or worrying about your reputation? Why would you get upset when someone insults you? In 100 years, both you and the person who insulted you will be gone. The insult will mean nothing, so why let it disturb your peace now? This isn't nihilism. Marcus isn't saying nothing matters. He's saying that external things, temporary things, don't matter as much as we think they do. What matters is living virtuously, acting with integrity, being kind and just and courageous right now in this moment, because the moment is all you ever have. Second major lesson: your perception creates your experience. Marcus writes that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this, he says, you have the power to revoke at any moment. Think about that. You have the power to revoke your suffering at any moment by changing how you perceive what's happening to you. This doesn't mean denying reality or pretending bad things aren't happening. It means choosing an interpretation that serves you rather than destroys you. Let's say you lose your job. That's a fact. That's reality. But is it a catastrophe or an opportunity? Is it a sign that you're worthless or a chance to find work that's better suited to your talents? Is it the worst thing that could happen, or is it a redirection towards something you haven't discovered yet? The event is the same, but your interpretation determines whether you descend into despair or rise to meet a challenge. Marcus faced unimaginable challenges: plagues, wars, betrayals, the deaths of his children. And yet his words aren't bitter, they aren't cynical, they're grateful. They're focused on duty, on service, on being better in this moment. That's the real test of wisdom, isn't it? Anyone can be philosophical when life is good, but can you maintain your principles, your inner peace, your gratitude when everything is falling apart? Marcus did, and his words prove it. So what's the conclusion? What do we take away from Meditations? I think it's this: build your inner citadel. Develop a mind that can't be shaken by external circumstances, not because you're cold or unfeeling, but because you've trained yourself to distinguish between what you control and what you don't. You've learned to focus your energy where it matters, on your character, your responses, your choices. When something difficult happens today, and it will, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, is this within my control? If it is, take action. If it isn't, accept it, and focus on what you can do. Ask yourself, how can I respond to this with virtue, with wisdom, with courage, with kindness? Marcus Aurelius had the same human brain you have, the same capacity for fear, anger, frustration, and despair, but he also had the same capacity for wisdom, strength, and inner peace. The difference is that he trained his mind every single day. He wrote these reminders to himself every single night. He practiced this philosophy in the most challenging circumstances imaginable. You have that same opportunity. You have this day, this moment. You can choose to build your inner citadel one thought at a time, one choice at a time, one response at a time. Thank you so much for listening today.